Welcome to our winter wonderland. We are outside today doing some cooking. We are going to be making some bone broth with some moose bones that we have, and we're also going to be making some chicken stock over the course of the next few days. Eric's got a little fire going for us right now. He's going to build some sort of rack and let the coals start to kind of like burn down so we get a bed and we can put our bones on top of it and get to cooking. We need some more little bits. Oh, got them right here. Oh, they're perfect, huh? That's great. Look at that. Yeah, that's solid. And just toss the bones into the snow, you think? Doesn't feel that cold today, huh?
No, it doesn't.
It's 0? It's probably warm enough even warmer than that. Okay, we've gathered up our moose bones and we're going to start with this one right here. And we're deciding to do this. We don't typically brown the bones before making broth, but we're doing this because of the condition of the bones. They're just a little bit rough. There's a little bit of meat still on them. We've done this before, but never quite in this fashion. So I'm excited to see the flavor that it lends to the broth. And I'm actually pretty happy that we were able to process these and leave the tendons and the cartilage on, because that's gonna help us later down the road when we make the broth. That little guy there. Look at this one. It's a nice leg bone, huh? Look at that color on there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Look at that tendon. This one, right? Did you ever think this is what we'd be doing on our 8th anniversary? I actually had to think about how many years it's been. Because I tell you what, it's been too long. You know, when friends get together and they're like, it's been too long. Sorry. I can't see.
Don't need to chop that one up, huh?
No, he's the perfect size.
Man, you could eat that right there. Well, that batch of bones is roasting. We saved a couple bones that we're not going to be using in the bone broth, and this is one of the scapulas of the moose, so like their front shoulder, and these come in handy when you're moose hunting. You can use this to mimic the sound that a bull moose makes with his antlers when he's like scraping it on the tree. So we're going to hang it up on the bird feeder and see if the gray jays and any other birds can get some of this meat off there for us.
Piece of meat hanging from a stick.
It has that like lining in it. Rain defender.
Thanks for following. Thanks for getting the thumbnail. Thank you.
This is going to be perfect. We're getting these cut into a little bit more manageable pieces for the pressure canner. I kind of leave nice big knuckle bones and then little sections like that. And these just fit a lot better in there. So we're using the Sawzall and it's just blazing through these bones. Look at that, big old knuckle. That's gonna do. We got some small chunks for us that we're gonna cook up for dinner, and then we've got the rest to start our broth. Let's head inside.
We've got our bones dispersed between 3 pots. 2 of them are our pressure canners that are going to be operating as pressure cookers. So we've got the bones in here. We have filled out the max water line. I use like lukewarm water to give them kind of a jump start. It takes a while to heat them up. There's a lot of bones in here, but we weren't able to fit them all into these 2. So we have one big pot going on the wood stove. And that happens to be my favorite way to make broth like this, because low and slow is just the name of the game with these bones, and the longer you cook them, the more nutrients you get out of them. Bones this size usually take like 48 hours on heat or longer. So being like big knuckle bones or the leg bones, and being from a wild game animal, I have found that they take a very long time to break down. We've added our apple cider vinegar to each of the pots to help with breaking the bones down. When they're in the pressure cooker, they cook much faster because it's under pressure. So we usually only process them for maybe like 3 to 4 hours. So not anywhere near comparable to what the one on the wood stove is gonna take. They're all gonna turn out delicious though, and we're gonna get some like amazing gelatinous broth at the end of it. We don't always think of bones as living, but that is exactly what they are inside of our body. So clearly this one's not alive anymore, but we've got some bone marrow in there. It's filling the whole area. A lot of fat in there, and we're also trying to extract the nutrients out of the bone. And I'm kind of big on the ligaments, so we left a lot of those attached, and that's what's gonna give us that like jiggly texture, all the collagen in there. So we're gonna get these going, and Eric is going to be cooking these little chunks up.
I'm really excited for these tonight. We're gonna cook up this bone marrow at 420. It should take like 15 or 20 minutes. And then when it's done, I'm gonna put some of that truffle salt on there. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's a whole bone right there. Perfect appetizer. I don't know what we're having for dinner though.
We're off to a great start this morning. We've got some clean jars for our bone broth that we're gonna be canning up. And these went for 3.5 hours yesterday. So that's the longest I've actually ever processed bones this size in our pressure canner. So I'm excited to see how it's turned out. I have yet to open them, and we did transfer the other bone broth we had going on the wood stove to the range. We are not running our fire that hot. When we have the stove top going, it actually heats up the house pretty significantly. So this is going really well. It's been going for about 17 to 18 hours, really long time, but it's got more to go. We're gonna get these opened up and strain them. Let's see how it looks in there. Looks like a lot of fat on the top, yeah. Looks pretty good. So that looks really good. I'm going to probably pull out the bones before I attempt to strain it. Just makes everything easier that way. And we'll go ahead and check on this one right over here and see how that one's looking. We're making a decision here. These bones are very well processed, but I still think that they could go for longer. They don't seem super ashy yet, and especially these big knuckle ones, you can see the marrow still inside of them. So I'm gonna try to extract even more life from them. And we're just adding them back to this other pot that's still gonna go for a lot longer. And we have to do a lot of like shuffling today because of all the stuff we're trying to accomplish. This has got to go back to the wood stove, and we are actually going to get started on some chicken stock as well, kind of simultaneously while we are canning up this broth. Well, we definitely have a healthy dose of fat on this broth, and it's a little bit messier than I would have hoped for. That's because it's starting to solidify. So if I had heated it up, it would be a little bit cleaner. But I'm not really that concerned about that because once they get in the pressure canner, I can just clean them up after they come out. On the bright side though, everything is like the perfect temperature. So we've got room temperature jars, we've got pretty much room temperature broth and room temperature water in our pressure canner that they're going in behind me. We're gonna add some vinegar to that and then process these for 25 minutes at 11 pounds. Crazy. Put all the fat on there. See all the fat on there? The broth is vented and is coming up to pressure now, and you may have noticed that we have just one single rooster in the back pot for our chicken stock, which doesn't seem like very much. That particular rooster was dispatched this morning and he was just the last one to not make the cut. We have the ones that we want to keep now out there. Normally when we do chicken stock, we kind of make it like a big batch. So we'll pick all the roosters that we're not keeping, process them, and make them into chicken stock and can them. But with the fox incident this year and them being hatched out a little later, we found it easier to just do it in like small sections. So what we did was we just go out there and grab like 2, maybe 3 birds and process them, and that chicken stock I actually have outside frozen waiting to be canned. I didn't mention it last night, but we have a little adjustable weight gauge that we're using on the pressure canners. This one's going to be operating as a pressure cooker, so it's going to go at 15 pounds for probably about 2 hours. And it really isn't a very big difference from the way that this one is operating over here. This whole thing is absolutely a labor of love, but the flavor you get is so incredible. I personally really like both bone broth and also chicken stock. The stock tends to be a lot more mild, so it's good if you're not looking for as rich, as savory or hearty of a flavor. And we're actually completely out of our bone broth, so we have a bunch of chicken stock, which is going to be great to replenish that, but we did not have any bone broth. Pretty good for one rooster. And that right there is my absolute favorite thing about stock or broth. We use those terms interchangeably. It's the glistening fat. So this particular batch doesn't have that much because roosters are younger and they haven't put on a lot of body fat compared to like a hen that's a few years old. But the meat on the bright side is very delicate and really good to eat. So we set that aside, and I think we're gonna try and go the distance tonight and just keep doing loads of broth because there's still a lot more to be done. And I have a feeling it's gonna take us a few days to get all of it canned up. Day 3, we've got close to 40 jars processed. This is the bone broth. Look at that lovely layer of fat on there. It's starting to solidify, and the chicken stock looks a lot different. Quite a bit more dilute and a little bit less fat. And we're still canning today, of course. So I have got our chicken stock. This is a big frozen cube. It's finally thawed out. We're gonna get this into some jars and get our second pressure canner going. We've already got the first one done for the day. And we are going to be calling it quits soon on the bone broth that's been going for the last 3 days. I think I'm finally at the point where I've extracted all that I wanted from the bones. I just sift through it and I'll pull out like the ones that all the marrow has come out and they look a little more ashy. But those ones can probably go for a little bit longer. And I'm hoping we get all the canning done today, but I'm not sure if we're going to.
Having 2 pressure canners really makes a huge difference when you're canning. Arielle mentioned that the broth and the stock pressure cans for only 25 minutes, which isn't a lot, but the whole process takes a long time. In fact, we wanted to see how long it took because it was just taking forever. So this one pot, from when we put the jars in, put the lid on, and started the heat, to venting it, to the 25 minutes that it canned for, to the pressure falling and it cooling down, to now we're done and we can open it, was 2 hours and 22 minutes. So that's just one batch, and since they're quarts, you can't double stack them, so I only got 7 in there. We're gonna get the top pulled off this one, pull them out, start a new batch, and I'm gonna try to clear a little bit of room on the stove here because we're getting kind of hungry and we're making enchiladas for dinner. Hot. That's that though, those are done. They're not broken, that's good.
The top to a pot makes a great tortilla cutter. This is 2/3 corn masa, and then the rest is some flour with salt and lard and some water, of course. And it's ready to go and get cooked. Eric's gonna be making us dinner.
We've got 8 tortillas, so we're making quite a bit of enchiladas tonight. We're gonna start on the sauce, and it's super easy to make. You can use water as the base, but since we have chicken stock in the fridge, this one is from 9 of 2022. We're gonna use chicken stock. So you need about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of this. We're gonna make quite a bit. We're gonna have some leftovers. And then we're gonna put our peppers in there. We're gonna do some serranos that we have in the freezer that we gotta go grab. And then we're gonna do some dried ancho chilies. We're gonna take the seeds out of those and put them in there. And then I've got 2 cloves of garlic that are gonna go in there. When we were looking for the serranos, we found some of our roasted ancho peppers from a while ago. So we decided that would probably be a little bit better. These are frozen. I'm gonna put these in here. And enchilada sauce is so easy. I'm gonna simmer this all for about, I don't know, a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna turn off the heat. I'm gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna immersion blend it, and it's gonna turn into a sauce. We're gonna coat our enchiladas with those. So when you pressure can a little rooster like we have done, you don't end up with like this huge delicate chicken breast. You end up with more like, I mean, it's pretty delicate and it's delicious, but it's a little stringier and you have to use it certain ways. So soup is a great way to use it. And I'm pretty sure the enchiladas is my favorite. I've added some of the enchilada sauce to here. We kind of got it like a, it almost looks like pulled pork. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a tortilla and we're gonna dip it in the enchilada sauce in here. This is pretty hot, so take it like that. We're gonna put it in our pan. We're gonna put a little bit of the chicken in there that has the enchilada sauce on it. And that's that. We're probably gonna do about 8 in here, and we're gonna keep stacking them up. Well, I thought I was making like a ton of enchilada sauce and I was gonna have all this left over for breakfast, but I barely had enough to cover these, and we had to bust into some of our green salsa. So we put green salsa on there. We're gonna put a little bit of cheese on top, and these are gonna go in the oven just until things are kind of like melted, so maybe about 10 minutes. And we'll be eating enchiladas. Look at this. I honestly have no words for this meal. I'm extremely hungry and that looks so good. We will see you guys tomorrow with more of our processing.
The last batch finished processing, and believe it or not, we ended up with 62 quarts of broth. So this is a fantastic amount. It's going to last us well over a year. All our hard work is paying off here. I had to reprocess just a few of them. It really wasn't that bad this time because sometimes that fat can make the seals not perfect, but we have those going and they're finishing up. These have all been cleaned and we've labeled them and we've taken the bands off. So these are sealed, so you do not need to have a band on them. That's the way they're supposed to be. I mean, they're supposed to be completely sealed. You can leave a band on if you want. So we've already taken all the bands off and we've labeled them with the date. I usually just put the month and the year, and I put the year specifically because we do make broth a lot and I just want to kind of keep our inventory rotated to make sure we're going through the older stuff first. And I put moose broth on the darker one because clearly you can tell the difference, but I'm not going to get this confused. But sometimes we make other broths that look really similar to this and I want to know which one is what. We have the perfect place to store all of these. Although it's inconvenient, it is our crawl space and it is dark and cool, which is just perfect for these. The broth that was cooked, the bones in the pressure canner versus on the wood stove and the stovetop look pretty much identical. They both had a lot of fat in them. So in my opinion, low and slow over an extended period is the best way to make it. I think it's the most nutritious, but if you don't have a lot of time to sit around for a few days, pressure canner method also seems to work quite well. And we set aside some of both of those broths so you can see what the final result is. You can see how jiggly they are once they cool. We're gonna be making dinner with those. We're gonna get started on our dough. We are making wonton soup for dinner. Eric's working on our filling for the, God, I know, something's bad. Eric's working on our filling right now, and we have moose meat in there. We've got some of our pickled garlic, some canned mushrooms, and also soy sauce, sesame oil, ginger powder, a few other spices he put in there. I think just salt and pepper, am I right?
Salt and pepper and ginger powder.
Gotcha. And onions. And I wanted to show you this neat little thing right here, which is a ginger plant. So we were able to buy one from the store that sprouted, and I have high hopes for it. We'll see. Right now, we can't harvest from it yet. In the actual soup, we're gonna use cucumbers, carrots, mushrooms, more mushrooms. We're gonna use this paste. I'm pretty excited about it. I know it's a wonton soup, but this is miso paste, white miso paste to be more specific. And we're subbing in leeks. We don't have green onions, so that's gonna be our soup. How's it turning out on your end?
Good.
Decent?
More than decent. Perfect.
Nice. Well, Eric did not let me down on those wontons, so I can't let him down on the soup. And these are the two different broths. This one is the one that cooked longer, and this was the one cooked in the pressure canner. They look, like I said again, the exact same. I just have more of one. But this is my favorite part. So this particular soup doesn't really need that much fat, although there's a really good dose. But this is my favorite part, is the jiggly. It's like Jell-O. Super gelatinous. That is what it's supposed to look like when you take your time with it. All that collagen breaks down to make it look like that. Wow. We're gonna whisk in that miso. Well, these look absolutely fantastic. We have to let them cool and let the wontons kind of absorb some of those juices from the broth. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if it wasn't already obvious, I definitely recommend trying chicken stock or bone broth if you ever get the opportunity. It's amazing to have on hand for so many different meals, and we'll catch you on the next one.